Welcome to the Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast. I am your host, Sarah Smith. I am a practicing rural family physician and the charting coach. This is the podcast for physicians and advanced practice providers who are ready to step back from the busyness of their clinical day to share ideas, question everything, and redesign their clinical day. We are redesigning clinical medicine to create sustainable clinical days and create time for our lives outside of medicine. Join us for discussions with world experts who are helping design sustainable models of clinical medicine and the physicians or clinicians who have discovered or designed sustainable models of clinical medicine for themselves. Welcome back, everybody. On this episode, we are going to be talking to Dr. Mary Leung, who is a physician who I met in one of the programs that I guest coach in. And so I am going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me today. My name is Mary Leung, and I am a full-time attending physician. I'm based in New York, and I am a full-time hematology, medical oncology physician. So before I met Sarah, I was really drowning in my work. I had a full load of patients pretty much every day. And I was, seeing, say, 25 to 30 patients a day. And my clinic day would be on paper finished by 4 o'clock, but came 7 o'clock, I would still be charting and still had a lot of work to do. So when my kids were still young, I wanted to see them. So I chose to go home after 7 and just to see them, spend some time with them. And after they went to bed, a lot of the times I still had to go back to charting and just do clinic work. And came time for bed, I went to bed. And a few hours later, I just had to get up and go back to work and just do the same thing, the same cycle over and over. So I felt very overwhelmed, stressed, and I felt like I was stuck. I couldn't do anything else but to do it. And I didn't think that leaving my job was really a viable option. I didn't really want to move away from the area. Um, my married family is here. My own family is in Hong Kong, so that's a little bit far away. And so I didn't want to really, leave. And I just was to the point that I really wanted to quit. And I um, really thought about it many, many times, but didn't do it. And I was miserable. I was unhappy, and I just didn't know what to do. And then fast forward to the pandemic. And the pandemic was a time that everything kind of slowed down. And so I was seeing a third of my patient load at that time. And so I had a first taste of going home on time or even earlier than on time. And that felt really nice. And I felt like I actually had a life. Not that I wanted the pandemic to happen, but, that really gave me an eye opener that, hey, what if that was possible even without the pandemic or even with full load of patients, that I could go home on time. I did not think that it was available for me because I thought that, I had to really write detailed notes, and I thought that, it was just not possible. And most of my colleagues did not go home on time, and a lot of them also had to do charting weekends and most of the nights. So then around that time I joined physician coaching program, and that's where I met Sarah. And so that it seemed like there was hope. that charting could be, more efficient. And so, I took that hope and continued with the coaching program. I was working with my coach. Long story short, is that within about 3 months, I was able to gradually cut down my charting time by two and actually sometimes more than 2 hours. And so now I've become the person that I go home on time and I am able to spend time with my family. So I go home actually, 5:30, and I'm done. I don't have to do anything else anymore. Just like, for example, today I saw 21 patients, including two new patients, and I was done by 5.
Nice. Okay. So we're not talking about you still having that third of the patient volume and having this new result. You're saying, no, I'm back to my pre-pandemic number of patients and I'm still maintaining this result.
Yes. So, I mean, on average, and I'm seeing, both hematology and medical oncology patients, and yeah, I'm seeing about 20 to 27 patients a day, and yes, I'm going home 5:30 with all the charts done.
That must feel different. So what does that feel like?
I remember when it first happened, kind of consistently, after a few times because the first time I would be like, oh, I was not giving myself credit. I was like, oh, you know what? I had a easy patients, or, oh, there was actually fewer patients than normal. But when I was like consistently doing it for a few more times, I was actually amazed. I was like, now what, in a good way, that what am I going to do now? I actually have time, or, that I have to think about what to do, besides spending more time with my family, with my a little bit older kids now, but they're still in school. Um, and, and I had time to really, watch some TV, or, other things. So that feels amazing that I actually have a life. So that's very different from, the years before.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, for those of you listening, this is just that little taste of, oh, interesting. So, this is a hematology oncologist, and this is someone who's seeing a high volume of patients in her day and has really transformed the experience of medicine for yourself. So, I want to take you back now to those days that you probably don't want to think about too much. So the patients would go home and you're then there for the next 2.5 hours, you were saying, about that till 7 o'clock?
Or 3, yes.
or three. Tell me what was happening for you in that moment. So the final patient kind of leaves the office.
Mhm.
I think we all have that nice, exhale experience. You're like, whew, finally the patients are done. And then what? What would happen? What would you be experiencing in that next 3 hours?
Yeah, just to quickly say that, looking back, I actually can't believe I lived so long like that. Now it's like I think my whole identity shifted to be someone who is consistently going home on time, and it's just really amazes me how I lived the way that I did.
Mhm,
So looking back, was I remember that, of course, as the day went on, I was getting more tired.
mhm,
And it came, 4:30, when I finished seeing the last patient, I remember the dread
mm,
that, oh, I still have this many charts to do.
mm,
And, I was, the person, even though I had many, many charts to do, like I would be, I guess sometimes it could be, on a good day, it'd be 5 charts. Sometimes it could be 10 charts, or sometimes it could be 13. Anyway, so I remember just the dread. Yeah, that, oh, I still had that many charts
mm,
to do. And I remember just feeling that I was shutting down,
mm.
mentally.
Right.
And the brain cells were really like, wanted to physically
Yeah.
leave my body, right? And I was getting slower and slower to
Mm.
chart, and I was also thinking, like, I was starting to mix up little things about patients, like, oh, did that patient have a murmur, or is that the other person, um and so then it was to the point that I didn't really want to do it, but because I felt the responsibility, I just finished the chart, and I did not want to chart, over the weekends, but occasionally I still had to do a few charts, on Saturdays.
Mhm.
So that was really, a, I felt defeated because I felt like I did not sign up for this to go into medicine. I signed up to help people.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up to be, documenting all day long.
Mhm.
And so that was, not fun. And I did not enjoy what I was doing as much as I wanted to help, people. I just didn't feel like I was doing my best.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. How many years had you been kind of in that attending role at that point?
Um, I think probably about close to 10 years.
Yeah, okay. So this is 10 years of you're thinking kind of same every year, year after year. It's not really changing about your evenings, your afternoon and evenings.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still remember, just, go back a little bit further, is, I remember just thinking when I was finishing fellowship that, oh, I would be an attending, I would be, kind of like just thinking that when you get there, you would be happy, that type of mentality. And then when I got there to be the attending, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, when I started, it wasn't a full load of patients yet. It was kind of gradually built up, but within a few months, I was pretty much a full load because one of the doctors retired 3 months after I joined. And so, but then at that time, it was still paper charts. So it was actually a lot easier to
Right.
to finish the charts at that time. And then came, of course, the electronic records.
Mhm.
So I just feel like, came probably um, 2015, 16, definitely for sure, that it was, started to build up, that I was really, I felt mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted at that time.
Yeah. Well, and you can see how that easily happens. So you've had a whole day of people in front of you, and now your brain's full. You get to the end of the day. You've now got to try and remember the fine details of each of those people, knowing that 7 o'clock comes along and you're not done.
Hmm.
So you dash home with this hope to catch your kids before bed. You hop into bed at bedtime. I like that. You kept your honor to yourself that, okay, it's bedtime, I better go to bed. But then you described this other part of your night. So tell me how that would go.
So after the kids went to bed, I would be, again, more dread
Mhm.
that I actually almost dislike my job, because I was blaming it as that it made me have to do all these extra work.
Mhm.
That, I didn't feel like it was really patient care, even though I understand that electronic medical records, the documentation is really to communicate with other clinicians of, what you're thinking, what your plan is, what things are showing about the patient. At that time, I just felt like, kind of almost resentment that,
Mhm.
why I had to do this, and I knew that it wasn't just me alone. A lot of doctors felt the same way.
Mhm.
And so it kind of made me angry.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it because I felt obligated to do it. So I just, I wasn't happy at all.
No, no. And you were waking up in the night, and those wake ups would get you back in front of that computer.
So you said you
Mm,
would head to bed and then you'd kind of wake up in the night and kind of wander back to the room to finish off some more charts.
well, it was my no, my kids went to bed. So
Oh, after the kids went to bed.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the kids, like, I would put them to sleep, or send them to bed, and then it was my time to go back to working some more. So it was that juggling, that because they
Mm.
would go to bed by 9ish, and then I would have to work some more, or order labs, or the kind of things related to patient care.
Yeah. So what time was bedtime?
Um, it was more like past 12,
Past 12.
and I would get up, within about 6 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how we think that that's going to be okay. we, we tell our patients all these good, wonderful things that are good for their brain and their health. And then we have this experience of medicine that we're really not enjoying. So you described that you were looking for exits. You were looking for how do I make this stop? What do I need to do to get out of this? Tell me some of the things that you had considered as alternative options to kind of figure this out for yourself. What had that looked like?
Yeah. So I was thinking of quitting, and maybe just find another job in kind of the area. But of course, a lot of us had the restrictive covenant. We weren't able to, I don't know, certain mile radius of, not allowed to work around that area. So I thought about, okay, I could go a little bit further away, and but still be able to live where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And So I actually even interviewed, and they were interested, but then I thought, well, I really didn't want to go that far,
Mm-hmm.
and actually just thinking a little bit more, it's kind of like I felt like no matter where I went, unless it was really, really out of state or in another, yeah, a different area, it would be very similar, because unless I had much less patient load, it would still be the same thing. If I had to see 20 patients, it would still be late, but maybe not as late that I would finish. So, so I didn't really entertain that idea too much, but then I still wanted something different. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to really be able to, I think my ultimate goal was to really spend more time with my family,
Mm-hmm.
and just have, really have a somewhat of a life, and have, some balance, and not just work, work, and work, as much as I enjoyed helping people. So I think, with this life coaching for physicians really just came to my lap. I did not ask for it. It just happened because during the pandemic, you kind of like look around, and there's like this physician summit, and then they included something called coaching, and I had no clue what it was.
Yeah.
I thought coaches were just for sports,
Mm-hmm.
and and then, well, I was curious, so I was like, oh, physician. And I mean, they were talking about physicians doing things outside of medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things was coaching. And so I was curious. And then I virtually met Sonny Smith, and I think that's how everything got started. I thought that, oh, that's very interesting, about how we think of things actually affect our emotions, and how we act, and of course what we do affect what our results are like. So I thought that all made sense to me. And how come no one told me about this?
Yeah.
And how come we did not learn about this in school, right? It's so straightforward. It just makes so much sense. So around that time, besides joining the coaching program myself, I actually wanted to learn more about it, and I joined the life coaching certification program.
Mhm.
And I joined it really more to just learn more in depth, because I guess, we in medicine, we always want to get to the bottom of things. We always want to be thorough.
Yeah.
So I did. And so, yes, again, it make more sense. And it's just almost natural for me to understand the concepts. And of course, at the same time, is I was working with my coach to really work on my mind of how I'm thinking about my charting day. Because so one of the things that I realized was, usually for the first half of the day, I was able to keep up,
Mhm.
with the charting. But the second half of the day, that was the trouble.
Yeah.
And we figured out that mainly because I was thinking that I was tired, there were so many charts to do, I didn't want to do it, like something along those lines, or all of the above at the same
Mhm.
time. So when I was thinking those things, I I felt, I didn't feel motivated. I
Mm.
felt defeated. I felt burdened.
Yes.
And when I felt that way, it's like I didn't really want to move, I wasn't as efficient because of that. I was like dragging along.
Mm.
And so because of that, and plus I had this notion that, oh, I should be keeping my patient appointments as on time as possible.
Mhm.
So because of that, I naturally sacrificed my charting time to say, okay, I'll just do that later. I'll just do that at the end of the day, so that I could keep my patients on time or close to it. So of course, thinking back, that was very silly. And because I spent much more time charting each chart than if I did it right away. And then,
Mhm.
of course, we talked about the little details that I would forget or mix up.
Yeah.
So that, so we work on just being consistent with what I was thinking, using really, um, the ultimate goal is to go home on time to spend with my family.
Mhm.
And the immediate goal is to, really see the patient, do the chart. And I was channeling or using the fuel of, really being focused and determined to do those, as opposed to in the past, I
Mhm.
would be using kind of the fuel of subconsciously, not purposely, choosing those things, as kind of like frustration, or almost like being forced to do it. And so that, of course, did not really work well for me, and it made me feel bad. So with the focus and determination, that I was able to just slowly, gradually, um, finish my clinic day like half an hour earlier, and then a little bit more, a little bit more. So yes, in 3 months, two to 2.5 hours earlier than my usual. So ended up going home 5:30, which is really amazing.
Yeah, love it. What else about your day now looks different? So you've got the same, you had a brief moment in time where you had like a third of the number of patients coming in, but then the patient numbers started to increase. So what, if we were to look back before and after, what else is different about your day now? So you were mentioning like content of the charting, but what other things as well? Even that.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say, so in terms of the content, like how I chart, um, I'm utilizing more, I guess the technical aspect of it is I am utilizing more of the dictation program, like our our institution give us this dragon, dictation, and the version that we have, I like it a lot because it lets you choose the specialty. And I think, of course, I choose an oncology, and it dictates very accurately, even with the drug names. So that really helps. And also, I'm doing more point forms, as opposed to like really super complete sentences, because I find that for myself, I rather read point forms than long paragraphs, because I'm going to skim through it anyway. For other other doctors' notes. So I'm doing that more, and definitely seeing the patient. And a lot of times while seeing the patients, I'm already charting in front of the patients. Thankfully, I think how the room is set up is that I am in front of the computer, but I'm also facing the patient. So that helps a lot with, paying attention to the patient, and just writing as they're talking about their, history of present illness or what their complaints are. So I don't have to remember the little details later on, right? And after I get out of the room, a lot of times is my chart is almost done. Or sometimes if they like to talk more, I let them talk, and then I'll type and finish the note in the room. So that's kind of great. I'll say that's the technical aspect of it. I would say the whole day in general, my emotions definitely different. I remember my coach asked me what my 3 most common emotions were. And I think I was saying something like stressed, frustrated, annoyed, something along those lines. But now I would say that I am grateful, I'm content, and I'm excited. Or, I just feel like, and I also bring that energy to my staff, that what I do usually before we start seeing patients is that I have like a little group huddle, because usually I work with a medical assistant and a nurse. So the 3 of us will be, I would just tell them that today is going to be a good day. And no matter what happens. So they already know I'm the cheerleader of the team. And we just make it work. And I just remember one time we had I think the transformer kind of exploded on the street, and so that we have blackout in the middle of clinic day in the early afternoon. So of course, poof, nothing happened. They couldn't draw the blood because they couldn't spin the blood down. And of course, no computers to use to document anything. But I said, you know what, we're going to just do what we can do, and see the patients. If, of course, this time I really had to chart later, but, we took care of patients like that. I think I know that in the past I would be flustered. I would be, really not in a good mood to deal with something unexpected like this. But I think right now it's more like I feel I expect the unexpected to happen. If it doesn't, that's great. But if it does, it's like, oh, that's the surprise that we have. And I just face it, deal with it, and just really head on face the obstacles that we have. And I think my staff knows that that's who I am right now, and they entertain the idea too, which is good. I think that when you have the positive energy going on, you can affect people around you to be more positive also.
And then what about the rest of the day's work? So we've got patients, we've got the charts, and then we've got the everything else. So tell me, what was that like for you before, and now what is it looking like?
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about like the patient phone calls and the labs and all those things?
Yep, everything else.
Yes, yes. So I have learned to be more streamlined with those things. So during the day, how my clinic day is structured is there are two half days. In between there is kind of like a 30-minute, lunch break.
Mhm,
So um, uh, a lot of the times I use that as my little break. I mean, I will eat something, of
mhm,
course, because we need the physical energy to go on. So before that, I also would kind of just see how, like maybe one or two times in between patients during the half day, I would just check my inbox very quickly to see, what messages need to be addressed. And most of the time, I actually delegate to my nurse to
mhm.
to do it because, like, say if the patient call about results or something, because if it's some serious scan results, I would have called them already.
Mhm.
If it's something not, usually lab results not very significant, I'll just tell the nurse to just call them back, tell them it's normal, or they just need to take some iron or something like that.
Mhm.
So I think in the past, I would think that, oh, I had to call back all the patients,
Mhm.
because they're my patient. I had to call them back. But I think now also the mindset shift is that, yes, they're my patients, but I'm using my representative to call. And because that way it makes my day flow faster.
Yes.
And they're representing me. It's not their own idea to call.
Yes.
So that really helps. And I also try to just have the nurses screen the phone calls, because sometimes the front desk, I mean, they usually also try to give it to the nurses first, but sometimes I know when the patients say that, oh, I want to talk to the doctor,
Mhm.
so and then they're kind of not very specific about things, then the front desk would just send a message to me.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like with the phone calls, with just me being able to delegate the phone calls, and that really certainly, I would say, save probably an hour of
Mhm.
my day.
Yeah, love it. So we're creating time. What were the conversations like in order to be able to create that with you and the nurses? Was there a new kind of conversation that would happen to say, hey, guess what? I'm going to give you a whole lot more work. What did that look like?
Um, Actually, it's more like, I think I started just thinking back, just say, oh, could you call this patient for me? Just, oh, it's easy, which is really, I don't give them too complicated things to do. Just call them back and say that the lab looks good or something like that. And then these days, it's sometimes if I don't see them because they're in another room or something like that, I would actually just, when I see the message in my inbox, I would just forward the message to the nurse quickly and just say, hey, could you call them back? And this is the, instruction, what I want you to say.
Mhm.
So that actually helps because it's usually really straightforward things like either say, oh, low potassium or low iron, and uh, or sometimes it's, oh, the scan looks normal,
Mhm.
things like that. And so that leaves me the um, more complicated phone calls, but there are less of them. And
Yes. Yeah.
so which is really helpful because then I also am able to spend a little bit more time with them, especially for the oncology patients, to be on the phone. But thankfully, actually, that the oncology nurses are able to answer a lot of their questions too. So they screen and help a lot with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So something that you're calling easy now, I suspect was a decent amount of training for the nurses. So that low potassium or that low iron level, they now have your understanding of how you would manage that, and they're able to then do that on your behalf, like I heard you say, as my representative. So you've shifted to think of them as part of your team, part of the patient's care team, part of the people who can help you, keeping you in that expert role, but also helping them, like in that training piece, to understand, what do we do with a low iron? What do we do with the low potassium? What would be the first steps that we would try? When would we repeat this lab work? Like, that's, we think, oh yeah, they got this, but they've learned from you. So there's been that training piece in order for you to now trust that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, now that you said it, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. But I guess it happened gradually, like little things, right? Little by little.
Yeah.
And so now they kind of know that, okay, this is the routine, this is how I want to do it, or how I want to say things. So which is really, really helpful too, because now I don't really have to say like a whole manual all over again, right?
Yeah, that's right. We give them the teaching training. We can overview the quality and make sure that we're happy to do the delegating, because that delegating piece is can be tricky if we're not willing to do the onboarding for our staff. So thank you.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, love it. So you've saved an hour by helping your team be part of the team, and we've helped you get to the end of the day with the charting done, so that now your brain is easier and better by the end of the day. Love, love, love all of this. Anything else about your day that you needed to, that would look different? So if we went back in time and looked at Mary before and now Mary now, like even inside patient interactions, what else? What else are you noticing?
Yeah, so I think during my work hours, definitely more positive, and it's just, I think, yeah, really, as I mentioned about my emotions now, it's mostly positive, and it just makes the day go much easier. And really, I feel more gratitude and content. And so I really do think that my team, the nurses, the medical assistant, they kind of feel the same way too. And I'm usually pretty organized, so I know they like to work with me because I tell them, because I know my patients, and I prepare beforehand that that's the other thing. It's like I usually prepare before seeing the patients, so I know who needs chemo, what day, and if I have to change the orders, or things like that. So I think that also makes the day go smoother, because I know what I'm dealing with. Of course, there are going to be little surprises, but for the most part, I'm very well prepared. um so that the clinic day is really almost fun now. It is kind of strange to say that, but it is true.
It is strange to say that. Now, just because listeners are going to be like, hang on a minute, when does she prepare? So when are you looking at that? I don't know if it's the patient list today or the patient list coming up this week, and making those high-level decisions about, this patient should be on this treatment, because this is your real expert role. This is where you are relied on as the expert decision maker for these patients. So when are you doing that work? Because that is a separate hat that you're wearing in your day almost.
Yeah, so I usually do that on my administrative day. So I have an administrative day, but I have had this since the beginning, pretty
The whole
much,
time.
the whole time,
Yes.
So now I am using that as my, just prepare for the week day, and think about seeing who I'm seeing, who the new patients are. The staff knows that I need the records, the new patient records, so before the day of, so I can see what I'm dealing with. Because yes, you're right, especially for oncology patients, I need some time to think about it sometimes, or sometimes I want to discuss with my colleagues to see what they think, because most of them, the patients, they don't read the textbook, and so they present very differently, even with the same diagnoses. So So I think that's the tricky part, and also the not so straightforward part of medicine, that we really have to think, about what to do and what is best for the patients, like trying to, tailor things. So that's what I do on my administrative day, and I think I've streamlined, and that's also when I ordered the labs
Mhm.
for for the patients, for their visits. So that's all done. Then that really helps with the rest of my clinic days, and I really don't have to do that, in the evening times.
Mhm.
So which is great. But
Yeah.
I think, just back to the question about like how my clinic day is also different, is I find that I'm actually infusing some coaching concepts for my patients.
Yeah.
So I have even, talked to a couple of my patients about, like what books to read, to improve their mindset. And because, a lot of them, even with benign hematology patients, they come in and they say that, oh, I'm very stressed, I'm very anxious, about, I think also patients are more, I guess, ready to open to female physicians than male physicians in general.
Mhm.
And I think there's a study done that I think female physicians get, what, 20% more calls, or, requests than male physicians, right? And so I just feel like, um, well, why I got into medicine and oncology is really, I like the connection
Mhm.
with the patients, not just the diagnosis and how to treat them, but really the real human connection.
Mhm.
Um, so I get to talk to them. I don't need to spend a lot of time with them, but just enough to have them feel that we're connected in a human level, and that the difference is really, I feel more connected because I'm more positive. I have the energy. I really have the fuel to give. And as opposed to in the past, that I was really running on, I don't know, dry tank, and that even though as much as I wanted to give, I couldn't. It's like, I know I'm kind of nerdy to use the analogy of, red blood cell production or iron deficiency anemia, right? As much as your bone marrow is working really, really well, but if you don't have iron,
Mm.
it won't be able to produce the red blood cells.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. So your intention when you were deciding I should just see the next patient, I should just go into the next room, was I desired connection with my patients. I desired relationship. I desired this stream of medicine for the connectiveness, but at the expense of your life and your value and your rest and all the things that we value about you. And it was, you were giving ghostly from a ghostly red blood cell situation. Like,
Yes.
there ain't nothing more to give people. Whereas now you're like, I'm getting the charting done. I'm getting home on time, which is fueling my ability to do medicine in a more sustainable way, in the way that I prefer to do it, which is with those relationships, with that
Yes.
connection with my people. Love it. So I think we need to acknowledge for you and the other subspecialties listening that there is that executive high level expert work that you do in your week. It may not look like today's work, but it looks like another hat that you're wearing, like when our cardiologists have to do their Holter monitor reading and ECG reading or stress test reading, or like if we're looking at ENT specialists who have to do their CT reporting, if we're looking at pulmonologists doing the PFT reporting, this is your high level work. So deciding on a patient's course of treatment, you call it admin day, I call it expert day. Like, this is expert day. This is the
I
time you
like that.
set aside to do the protected work, where we're really asking you to be the boss, be the really high level expert, doing that high level work. That is your other hat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like that I'm actually more efficient than in the past, and because really all these days that I have the energy, right? Like I'm saving 10, 8 to 10 hours a week to, that I've spare time, that I'm recouping my mind, to be able to do all these things. I mean, I'm exercising regularly every day, and I read. I mean, I never, I shouldn't say I never, but I haven't read a book for so many years, and now I'm reading a book a month, and on top of the journal articles, and I mean, reading a book is outside of medicine. It's really about um really building your mind, and about life coaching. And plus I have time to really have my coaching business, to coach physicians, really to help them feel the way that they can feel, to be happier, to enjoy life and medicine again. And I feel like, yes, I'm doing a lot more these days, but I don't feel like I'm doing more, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
you're enjoying it more. Sounds good. All right, so tell us, where can people find you if they're interested in all the things that you're kind of doing at the moment?
Yes, so you're welcome to visit my website, www.shiningwithgratitudemd.com. And my email is the same, is shiningwithgratitudemd@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook, Mary Leung, and I am on LinkedIn, Mary Leung MD. And I'm so happy to be able to talk to you today.
Love it. And then we're going to ask you for just 3 kind of finish up take-home messages for those people listening who are trying to do this for themselves, that recreation of their clinical day. What does that look like? What would you say?
Yeah, I would just say the 3 things to keep in mind is really, one, be intentional to use the positive energy, the positive emotions to fuel your day, because that really makes a big difference. Because positive energy, such as the focus, the determination that I talked about, it's definitely a lot more sustainable than the negative energy of anger or frustration and alike. The second thing is, it is possible to go home on time and do whatever you want, be it be spend it with your family, or develop your hobby, or what. I am the prime example. I am just an ordinary attending doctor, and I did not think that it was possible, and I just kept at it. And now it's like I can't imagine going back where I was.
Yeah.
And so the last thing is that it is also possible to enjoy life and medicine again. Because, of course, charting is a very big part of our clinic day. Not that it is by choice, but it just happened to be that way. But it is possible to manage it well. And also the rest of the clinic day with, patient calls, the result review, things like that. And it is, possible to really be able to well manage that, and remember why you get into medicine in the first place is, for me, is to a simple concept is to, I just want to help people. And on the way to doing that is, I enjoy the human connection. So now I feel like I'm really helping people, and I can, get to be almost like friends with them, at that level of connection. Like, I'm able to know the family members. I know who does, sit-ups every morning, things like that. That is, that I don't write in the chart, that I just know them by heart. It's really a wonderful experience, to be in this world, to be present in the moment. So those are the 3 things that I want to share.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm sure you've inspired some people to even start to have a twinkle in their eye that there is a different or possible way that's different from what they're experiencing now. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being part of the Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast. If you'd like to learn more or join us to help you get home with today's work done, go to chartingcoach.ca. There you'll find all the information on the premier Lifetime Access Charting Champions program that is helping physicians get home with today's work done, with all the proven tools, support, and community you need to create time for your life outside of medicine. We would love to see you there. Until next time, thanks for listening.